I will say that I got off the airplane and immediately smoke, dust, and casinos just hit my face all at once. Nevada was a very different experience. It was a bit of a culture shock for me, which is funny to say because it's in the United States. You think it's not that different. It is. So I wouldn't even go so far as to say that state missions can't be different. It was really just kind of strange. I got there, met my mission president, and he pulled me in for an interview, and I was just exhausted. They do orientation all day long, and I probably slept through half of it. And when I was awake enough to have an interview with him, I was just like, wow, I don't know where I am. What have I got myself into? I just signed up for this for 2 years. It's kind of crazy. So a lot of thoughts going through my head. And it was hard those first couple weeks. All of a sudden you have a guy who is your trainer. And he's the same age, if not maybe even younger than you. And he's supposed to be just teaching you how to step into the world and be an icon for people that can be good or bad. And so it was a very different experience. But I'd say stepping into Nevada was new, but it was kind of invigorating as well in that sense. So the Nevada-Reno mission covers from about Tonopah, is about as far south as we go, just a few hours north of Vegas. And that goes up to Idaho and that borderline there, so to the very top there. It stretches out as far east as the Utah border, and then goes as far west into areas like Quincy, Portola, Susanville, out in California. So it covers a decent part of the northern portion of California, and then you have a lot of that northern Nevada area in the mission. Historically, it's a big-time church history area. A lot of Nevada was settled predominantly by LDS settlers who came over, and so you have places like Elko that was very LDS originally, and then of course Vegas, we know, was originally settled by a lot of LDS people. So there's a pretty strong LDS history to Nevada. What's interesting is that the people in Nevada, while that church culture is still big, have kind of drifted away from that a little bit. So you see a large number of less active and inactive members of the church, or people whose families have generationally been part of the church, but they don't consider themselves or aren't baptized members as of yet. And so you see underground a huge church culture. It's just kind of masked by, I guess you see people who have kind of fallen away or fallen inactive from that. So it's kind of predominant everywhere. People know the church. They're not unfamiliar with it. As a missionary, you're not going to approach many people who say they've never heard of the church. They probably have, and it's kind of in their faces in Nevada, just in a different way than it would be in Utah. So at least in the Reno mission, there is a temple. It's located in Reno, and that's the only one in Nevada besides the Las Vegas temple. It's a great temple. It's beautiful. And that being said, the religious climate in Nevada is, I would say, pretty strongly religious, just kind of in a different way than we'd expect. You do see a lot of powerful Christian beliefs in Nevada. They're largely non-denominational. You will see different Baptist and other Christian faiths around there as well, but I'd say some of the biggest ones are the LDS Church, Catholic Church, Baptist, and a lot of non-denominational Christians. That's pretty big there. There's also a large number of people, though, who kind of have a little bit of distaste towards religion, and so they've backed off a lot. And so you kind of get a mixed culture. Some who are very heavily religious but don't much like the LDS Church, and then those who just don't care for religion at all and they're really not interested in hearing it. I would say that Nevada has a lot of people that are kind of like cowboys. They're isolationists a little bit. So you don't have a lot of people who know their neighbors very well. They don't really talk to their neighbors. They don't really want to be involved with people or big religious organizations. So even though people are aware of this kind of stuff, they're not often a part of it. I would say if I was going back to Reno and I really wanted to focus on a few things that are most important, I would say that some of the most important things I would really go back to is working on really building up the faith and the strength of the members and of the wards and stakes, and using them even more to really touch the hearts and lives of the people that they're around. There's a lot of people, I think, that can be brought back to the church or can be reintroduced to it that frankly are affected more by strong members than they are by missionaries knocking on doors and making cold calls. So missionary work is going to be different kind of anywhere you go. depending on certain methods you might use or things you might focus on. But in the end, it really is always the same generally. You're always teaching about the restored gospel, and you're always helping people to feel loved and understand their purpose in God's plan of salvation. And so I would just say that focusing on the scriptures, on preach my gospel, and on sincerely wanting to love and serve the people that you're called to, are probably some of the biggest things you could do. And I would just say focus on that, and the rest kind of just falls into place culturally. So I served from January of 2013 to January of 2015. I served predominantly in Reno. I spent my first 9 months or so in downtown Reno, right on the strip per se. We had a little apartment off right in downtown that we worked in for a while. I was transferred up to my second area that was just in North Reno and served for a couple months there. Transferred back into downtown Reno, serving in a young single adult ward, and I spent the rest of my mission in YSA wards from that point on. I was serving in downtown Reno for a little while doing that. Then I got moved up to Ely on the far eastern edge of Nevada. It's pretty close to Utah. Served there in a YSA ward for a few months, and then got called back to the Reno Sparks area and served my mission president there for the remainder of my mission, and had a blast with it. So Reno is the biggest little city in the world. It's a great city. It also is kind of, I think, a little bit of a dirty city. You'll immediately recognize it for its casinos, big buffets, and other attractions and stuff. It's got all sorts of activities, that kind going on. It's a busy place, lots of lights, lots of sound. It's active. People are always going everywhere. So if you jump into Reno, be prepared for a busy, fast-paced lifestyle and people who are living probably a little more worldly than the church might tell you to at first. That being said, I'd say probably some of its biggest resources that are the income that it has in businesses is definitely probably the casinos and other things it has going on there. They make a lot of money. They're huge in that area. But Reno and other parts of Nevada are also actually heavily involved in mining and other stuff like that. So you'll see all sorts of things going on there. Really deep in the city, we noticed that there was tons of people who did a lot of construction management and housing management and stuff. So you kind of got a couple different fields there. But I think Reno immediately stands out to you as kind of a casino town. And it's a big change for people who aren't used to that. So UNR is a huge campus on Reno. University of Reno, it's a great place. You'll see a lot of folks there. That was actually one of the areas I served in my YSA ward because there was tons of college students available there. As far as housing, Reno's got a little bit of an income discrepancy. There's a lot of really poor people in Reno, and there's a lot of really rich people in Reno, and there's a little bit of middle ground. And so you see a huge discrepancy here between people who live in very low income housing, a lot of heavy crime, and a lot of stuff that can be kind of hard and kind of dark to deal with. And then you see another side of people who never even experienced that and live very well on the incomes that they have and don't really see that part of Reno that they live in. And there's a pretty big change there. That being said, housing's kind of mixed all over the place. Like I say, you have some very low income, very dangerous housing. And then you see some that is just great, housing that you don't even think exists because people just have the money to afford it and put towards it. So that's pretty cool in its own way there. I have to say, as far as food, Reno is really well known for its sushi. That might sound weird, it's not anywhere near water, but Reno has incredible sushi. And so some of our favorite places to go were like Sushi Pier. And you'd have just tons of sushi you could do. And so when we could afford it, we do it every now and again. And that was a blast. So Ely was a very different kind of city. Ely's small. It's part of the Great White Basin area, which was home to about 10,000 different people. Most of them were in the little city of Ely, but Ely had some few outlying cities like Ruth or McGill that were home to a couple hundred. And so these little small towns were basically all built on mining businesses. And they were pretty old, and so you'd see a lot of age differences there. I actually would go up to McGill pretty often in one of my areas, and it was home to about 700 people, and like 60% of them were like 60 or older. And they were all old World War II vets, and they had been miners before the war, and all sorts of things like that, or they had experienced other wars, Vietnam and such like that. And so they were old ranching and mining communities. And that was what brought a lot of income into Ely. And so I had this small town feel, and historically it's just always kind of been a dot on the map that most people haven't really paid attention to. And that being said, it was probably one of my favorite areas because of what it offered. It was a smaller culture, it's away from the city, and so a lot of people were just more interested in their families and more interested in kind of making life work in their kind of small bubble than in stretching out across the world. And so we really thoroughly enjoyed that. Like I said, as far as the history, I just say the people have just been involved a lot in older American history, involved in things like the gold rush and different world wars we've had. And so the people themselves carry a pretty strong culture that's unique and different from a lot of other places we went to. I guess I would just say that Ely, the way it's built on, is it's built kind of right under the basin of mountains and in between these intertwining valleys and stuff. And so you do have a lot of fun places that you can kind of go to go see different hiking areas. It's pretty scenic. It's a beautiful area. I guess oddly enough, Ely is also home to a supermax prison. So you kind of drive off in the distance, and if you really wanted to, you could drive up to this huge prison that houses some of the nation's worst criminals. So actually a lot of people did prison work at Ely as well. So that was always kind of interesting. But other than that, it really wasn't much of a touristy place. It was just kind of home to local folks who have been there for generations. So during the last probably 6 months of my mission, my companions and I had felt like we were pretty much at the point where we were the best that we could be. We knew the stuff. We'd been through the training. We had done the training. We had served, that last 18 months pretty diligently, and we thought, man, like we're kind of at the pinnacle of where we need to be. And we just kind of had a famine of baptisms. I baptized once in that last 6 months. And that was really hard for me because I thought, man, at this point, I'm the best I can be. I'm giving everything to the Lord. Like, why aren't we seeing more of this? And there was a huge amount of almost just kind of stress and turmoil. Like, what are we not doing right? Are we not praying hard enough? Do we not have enough faith? Are our plan setting goals not well enough? Like, what's going on? And I'm not sure that we ever came to like that one answer, like, oh yeah, that's it. But what we did realize was that the Lord wasn't concerned with the number of baptisms we were getting. The Lord was concerned with how hard we were working and how earnestly we wanted to do good in the world. And that took a lot for us to swallow too for a while. It was a lesson that my companion and I really had to learn that didn't come easy. But we realized that being out in the mission, you track statistics, you track goals, and you track numbers, but you don't do it to prove your success by the numbers, you do it to learn. And ultimately, success is not measured by those things. Success is measured by what you give. And so we learned to give everything that we had to the people and to the Lord, to make our mission president proud, to make the Lord proud, to make the people proud, to do everything that we could to serve, and that was what was most important. And I just kind of had to come to terms that numbers weren't the most impressive thing, but our service in that area was, and the love that we had for the people and the gospel was, and that was huge. We'll probably see some pretty heavy hail. That was about the worst it got. The winter had a lot of snow, but hail for sure was probably the worst we had. I for sure loved the sushi in Reno. Thought it was great. That was a huge favorite of mine. I also really loved Reno's tri-tip. They had a lot of steak and other stuff like that. They just did so well. They always had A1 sauce. Loved that. But another huge thing I noticed about Reno was that everyone ate avocado. That was like the big thing to do. So you put avocado in your salads, you put avocado on your burgers, and you put avocado with your eggs. And just like anything you could put it with, they just had tons of it. And so I started to really love avocado. So those were probably the three biggest things I came to really love. Probably the most different. Nothing really was hard to eat. I mean, it was a pretty traditional area, but probably one of the most fun things I had was different kinds of antelope, bison, stuff like that. Things that you don't normally get to eat, but a lot of folks there did. We had a lot of antelope and other things that came out from the woods. We also had a lot of hunters, so they would frequently show us the skins of cougars they'd hunted, or bears, wolves, all sorts of stuff. We wanted to go up to a northern part of Reno that's just kind of out in the sticks, that we wanted to kind of tackle. No one's really touched it before. It's a little hard to get to, and there's not a lot of people there, but since it was an untapped area, we wanted to see who we could find to teach. So we went up north into this area and had a lot of trouble getting to people's homes. Got to one where we found someone who was actually pretty receptive, pretty open to at least praying with us and learn a little bit more about our message. And so we spoke with her for a little bit. And as we were praying with her, heads down and bowed, we hear a couple of trucks pull up behind us, and it's filled with men that don't look super happy to see us. And they immediately threatened us and said some things they probably shouldn't have, wanted us off the place and out of the whole area, not just from their house, just gone. And so we tried to talk to them for a little bit, and they were not interested in speaking to us. We're convinced that we believe in a different Jesus than they do, and we're going to tell us all about it and lay down the hammer. And so after trying to kind of reason with them a little bit and explain what our purpose was to share about God's message, they literally threatened their lives, just about chased us out, and we didn't really come back to the area. Probably one of the craziest moments I've had. Most people weren't that extreme, but that was by far one of the weirder ones. So one evening, my companion and I were just finishing up with an appointment that we had. We were heading home. It was getting late, and we decided to take a different route home than we typically do. As we were walking down this road, kind of felt an impression that we needed to keep going straight and then take a left. And so we did. And we actually ran into a young couple that we had seen outside before that we really hadn't had a chance to speak with. And we recognized them and thought, hey, we really got to go talk to these guys. And we went and talked to them, and it was kind of rare to meet young people in Nevada who wanted to have some sort of religious discussion. And it was kind of cool that they were living as a couple. That was difficult to find. And so we went and talked to them and shared with them the message of the plan of salvation, gave them a pamphlet, and had a prayer with them. It was actually a really neat experience. They were both not only just excited to see us, but happy to progress and keep seeing us. And it was just kind of neat that a simple prompting to take a different route than we normally did would lead us to people who are prepared to hear the gospel. And we later had a couple of different opportunities to meet with this couple, to share with them different messages, to invite them to church, all sorts of things like that. And it was just rewarding to know that even at the end of the day, after a long day of hard work, that the Lord will still lead you to those people who need to hear the gospel and are ready to get that. So I'd say probably one of the bigger lessons I learned was humility and learning to trust in the Lord. That was something I really struggled with before my mission. I just kind of had brought myself up in the idea that I needed to take care of myself. I can solve the problem. I can handle this. I can help them. And coming out of my mission, I still kind of had that mindset that it was about me changing people and not realizing that it was actually the Lord. And so I think one of the biggest lessons I learned was turning my full attention to God, really giving Him my heart, my mind, soul, and strength, and letting Him be the one that changed the people. We're the messengers, we're spokesmen, we're even symbols to people to a certain extent, but we are not the changing factor in their lives. What we bring is. And letting the gospel permeate their lives and mine in that kind of way really affected me in a lot of ways. I think that was a huge lesson. One of the other ones I learned, though, simply was just dedication, effort, obedience, things that just kind of stuck with me in that way. I learned to just really kind of get down and get in the grit and do it, to just be diligent, focused on work, but allowing other elements of my life to be blessed in the same way. I would just say that learning to be a structured, organized person was also huge for me. I'd say be prepared for harsh winters as well as hot summers. Some people just kind of think that Nevada is all a desert, and that is true to a certain extent. That doesn't change the fact that it's high desert, and when winter comes, it gets brutal. There's a lot of snow, there's a lot of ice, there's a lot of weather. It gets very cold. You want to pack for that. But in the summer, it gets brutally hot, and it's just steaming from the pavement. So you kind of got to be ready for both. So I'd say pack in such a way that you can kind of tackle both of those things. And people always had a saying in Reno, they said, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. So just be prepared for a lot of change and a lot of different kinds of weather that you're not expecting to see in that area, and you might be kind of ready for it. They were really genuine people. They might not come off that way at first because they're a little colder, but once you got to know them, they're really genuine. People in Nevada were very hardworking, and I really enjoyed that about them as well. And people in Nevada knew how to really develop themselves. Like I said, they were a little bit on the isolationist side, but it's because they knew how to take care of themselves, knew how to work hard, and they knew how to develop things that needed to get done. And I found that pretty remarkable about them. They're a hardy people. Yeah, so if you just got called to the Reno, Nevada mission, then you just got called to one of the greatest missions in the world. You will learn to love a people who love to work, who are independent, and who are strong. And you're also learning to be a part of a people that the Lord loves. I think one of the things that I really needed to know when I first opened my call was that it doesn't really matter where you go, the Lord's work is the same, it's powerful, it's real, and it absolutely changes lives. You're also going into an area that historically has a lot of LDS church influence in it. And so in some ways, you're not just reinventing a new faith for people, you're bringing back lost sheep who at one point in their family line were part of this gospel, who are part of this church and are now missing out on that. And so when you come to Reno, you're helping to build and strengthen and regrow a church that used to have a really powerful influence there and really truly still does. And so I would just encourage you to be excited about where you're going. Embrace the heat, embrace the desert, embrace the people, but also embrace the Lord and be prepared to do exactly what it is He would have you do. And you're going to love Reno and really everything about it.